Hello, welcome to 30 Minutes. I'm Rick Anthony. The revelations of sexual misconduct among Catholic priests and the allegations of cover-ups on the part of the church hierarchy have produced cynicism and contempt among millions of Catholics in the church. The cost of the fallout is measured in outrageous, almost immeasurable financial terms, but more than the financial cost has been the psychological wreckage, not only within the church, but outside the church, in the church community, among the faithful, the victims of priests who, for whatever reasons, chose another way. My guest today is Father Paul Morrissey. He's an ordained Roman Catholic priest, has been the priest for almost 50 years, who serves as the chaplain of the Philadelphia prison system, among other things. He's the author of Black Wall of Silence, a compelling novel based on the headlines about sexual abuse in the Catholic Church with an added twist. Father Morrissey, welcome to 30 Minutes.
Thank you, Rick.
Delighted you could be here. A little backstory on this. I became aware of Father Morrissey because of an op-ed piece he wrote for the Philadelphia Inquirer. He's a native, grew up in Upper Darby Township, went to St. Alice's Catholic school, the parochial school, St. Alice's Parish. And in this article, which was a wonderful piece, a nostalgia piece, about what it was like back in the 50s, I guess, going to St. Alice's school, elementary school. I read it, some of my friends read it, and we all reacted the same way because it brought back memories we had of our days in Catholic school, in my case, St. Gregory's in West Philadelphia, where I grew up. Yeah. So there was the footnote to the article was the fact that Father had just written a book called The Black Wall of Silence. And I didn't know anything about the book, but he's an author, and we like to interview authors here at 30 Minutes. And so I contacted him through an intermediary, a priest friend, and he told me about the book. I was absolutely astonished when you told me the subject, the plot, and so on. So I'm delighted. This is, I guess, Radnor Studio 21 exclusive. This is your first interview on the book, is that correct?
Correct.
A bit more about your background. You've spent a good bit of time as a psychologist, as a counseling psychologist, in the prison system, both here and in, was it New York?
New York. We had a counseling center in New York. My main doctoral degree is in spiritual direction, but I do pastoral counseling too, training. In the prisons, in the hospice movement, and in private work too.
Well, I spent a short time in the New Jersey prison system when I graduated from college as a teacher. So I have, I think, some recollection of what prison life was like then, and I'm sure it hasn't changed. If anything, it's probably gotten worse. This is not your first book.
Right.
What was the first?
Let Someone Hold You. The stories of the patients I worked with in the visiting nurse service hospice program. Yeah.
Those people do wonderful work. I mean, they are true angels.
Incredible.
True angels.
We call them midwives to the heavenly spheres.
Yeah.
That's what they call themselves.
Yeah. Okay. You've been a priest for almost 50 years.
Yes.
And an Augustinian, a member of the Augustinian order. You have taught, I think, as well at
Theology
Villanova.
at Villanova and our other colleges. Yes.
Why did you write the book?
Like you said earlier, Rick, as a priest and as a Catholic, I've been torn apart by all of the crisis surrounding the sexual abuse scandal and the continual headlines and other issues over the last 10 years. I wanted to do something about that, to provide healing for the church, if I could. And I felt like if I could write a story rather than a headline, that people could identify with the struggle of various characters who I could show the human face and heart underneath their behavior, even if some of it was wrong, we could enter into discussions about it and out of that bring some healing and trust in the church again. That's my hope.
Okay.
It's a big hope.
It is a big hope. It's a tall order.
Yeah.
The 50 or so years you've been an ordained priest, you've seen an awful lot of change under the stewardship of at least 4 popes, each with his own style.
Right. 5 popes.
5 popes, his own style. Within that context of change, evolution within this temporal body called the Roman Catholic Church, what have you seen as in change, if any, in the Church's position on sexual abuse or sexuality among the clergy?
Among the clergy, well, celibacy stands firm, and
That's immutable.
well, it's never changed under all these popes.
Yeah.
They could change that. It was changed way earlier. They used to have, Peter had a mother-in-law, St. Peter.
Yes.
So they were married for dozens and decades and hundreds of years, but it became a celibacy rule for priests in, I think it was the 11th or 12th century. So celibacy remains the case. But all the other sexual rules and moral guidelines we all have, we all know them. They stand the same. However, this Pope, Francis, seems unique in not stressing all of them. He always seems to be coming at things with a pastoral feeling about individual people he meets. You see him going out to prisons. You see him meeting people in the streets. And he says something like, who am I to judge? This sort of knock us out, because we're not used to hearing popes speak so mercifully as the main word. They're usually like responsible for keeping the law, and they're stressing that. He doesn't seem like he's worried about that. He just comes out with the compassionate reach out. He wants us to be pastoral, reach out to all these people who've been hurt and in some ways pushed out of the church.
Yes.
And a lot of them around sexuality issues, divorced and remarried Catholics, homosexual people, people who live together before they get married. All these people, he wants us to talk with them before this upcoming synod to find out how they understand the meaning of marriage and sexuality.
The upcoming synod is the family synod.
Yes,
in
right after the meeting of the marriage, the great marriage meeting in Philadelphia this September. There's going to be a synod, the second synod of bishops, to deal with a lot of these things.
But as he makes these well, I won't call them the comments, his continuing commentary on the role of the church in modern society, he's right on the edge of trying, it seems to me, and other traditionalists, of trying maybe to accommodate a little too much some of the aberrations we're living with now, and right on the edge of situational ethics, where circumstance may explain or forgive is a different issue altogether. I think you get my point.
Yeah, I do, and he can easily be challenged that way or seen that way. I don't think he's like a lightweight or a flaming liberal or anything. But think about it this: in some ways, he's more exemplifying Jesus's response in the Gospels. Like this week, we've read about the woman caught in adultery, who the Pharisees chased up to Jesus and said, "The law calls for this woman to be stoned to death. What do you say?" He responds pastorally. He starts writing on the ground. He looks at them and he said, "Anybody without sin, throw the first stone." They all back away. He looks at the woman and he says, "Does no one condemn you?" She says, "No." And he says, "Well, then neither do I. Go and sin no more." He's not addressing it with the law. He's addressing it with this woman. You could call that situational ethics. It's really good pastoral ministry. So I think the Pope is really showing us the way of Jesus more than we're used to hearing in the church, and calling us to mercy. Reach out with mercy. Listen humbly to these people.
Which is, and I don't want to go off on this tangent,
Yeah,
but is still somewhat disconcerting to traditional Catholics, those of us who have grown up in the church with dogma and right is right.
Including me.
Yeah. Who feel a little disenfranchised because we were held accountable for all these years. Now all of a sudden there seemed to be a new set of rules. That's a generational thing. And change
I would
is
just
hard.
challenge you to say, I don't think it's a new set of rules. I think he's offering us a new way to approach these issues. Personally, humanly, pastorally, and compassionately.
With greater empathy.
And the rules have to be held in tension with that too. You know.
And that's a good word, tension.
Yeah, there's a tension there. And that's in the novel too.
In the synopsis, let's get to the book. In the synopsis of your book, Black Wall of Silence, I love the title and I love the cover. I really love that. Is a very compelling cover.
Remind me to say something about the title and the cover later.
Please do. But in the synopsis of the novel, which you sent me, you write that your novel is about the struggle for the soul of the Catholic Church, which is being torn apart by the sexual abuse crisis. You state, "We see the link between the cover-up of sexual abuse and the closet that its gay priests must hide in if they wish to serve the church. That the Black Wall of Silence mirrors what is going on in the church today." Okay.
A lot.
It is a lot, yeah. Let's get to the plot. Now, I've not read the book. It has not been available yet. It's going to be released soon. But I understand from the synopsis and the material on your website,
Right.
which is the blackwallofsilence.com or
Yes.
org, com.
Yeah.
I've read the brief descriptions of the characters and so on. How is this a struggle, and a struggle between which forces?
I feel like the two things that catch all of us, we were just sort of talking about it here in terms of even responding to somebody in some crisis, is the tension between loyalty to church teachings and honesty or integrity. So I feel like that's struggling going on in the church with the whole sexual abuse crisis. And we have these bishops you read about in the headlines, they covered up some
Yes.
as though they're just doing that because they're evil or they don't care. My thought is they're doing it out of some human, real, and pastoral concern for the church. That's their main role, to guard and defend the church. So they have loyalty, in my mind, as one of their basic calls.
Misguided.
Well, let's wait on that a minute. That's one of their main roles, to be loyal to and shepherd and hold together the church.
Yes.
And then you have others of us, including priests in the church, who may see something going wrong in that system, like you would in corporate America or even in a family. Do you raise a question that challenges the system and appear disloyal? You're saying, what's going on here? Who do you say that to? And if they don't want to listen to you, I wanted to show that struggle with two main characters: this priest chaplain, who's a gay priest, and the bishop, and they're seminary friends from long ago, and they're battling over like loyalty or honesty, which is going to win. So that's the plot of the book.
Okay.
And you'll see a climax in a courtroom scene where they're defending an inmate or sending him up the river or not.
Take a few more minutes, please, and develop the characters. There is the priest, the protagonist.
Right?
A gay priest.
Yes.
Presumably a celibate gay priest. There is the bishop.
Yes. Presumably he's celibate too.
Okay. And these were classmates in the seminary.
Yes.
They've known one another a long time. They were friends.
Yes.
The priest is a chaplain in a prison?
Yes. Set in Rikers Island, New York.
Okay.
And St. Patrick's Cathedral is the main place for the church setting.
All right. And who are the other characters? And
Other
what roles do they
other
play
key
in
characters,
the plot?
like there's a couple main female characters. Norma, who is the supervisor of the prison chaplains, and she is a divorced Catholic, so she has her own issues in the church, and she's a very interesting lady. She's got a great heart. She'll help anybody. They call her the mother of all captives. She errs a little bit over doing that. You'll see in the book. Then there's a nun, an older nun. I'm fond of nuns.
Sister Sophie?
Sister Sophie, who really turns out to be like the prophetic figure in here. She's the spiritual director for Father Zach, the prison chaplain. She keeps encouraging him no matter what, even whether he's afraid of betraying the church or his brother priests. Don't betray yourself. Be true to your conscience. So she's always behind him, pushing him. Then you have some other characters. The father of Father Zach, Daddy, he calls him. You see his key moments,
Yeah.
his relationship with
But
his
the
father.
central character is the young inmate.
The young inmate, Migo, who's a mixed race person, young person who murdered a priest, we see, who sexually abused him. And that's the whole struggle. The bishop wants to cover this up. The chaplain wants to bring out the fact that he was abused by the priest. That would provide some reason why he might ever go crazy and murder him. And that's the battle into the courtroom over those two.
And how does the confessional come into this?
The confessional?
Doesn't the Migo confess something to?
Yes. And there's the confession as a whole institution in the church plays a big symbolic role in this book. You'll see that.
Okay. What we call the sacrament of penance.
Yes. Yes. It makes a case for the sacraments, how beautiful and good they are. But you see how it's played out in the. What was the point about Migo confessing to him?
I thought that somehow the priest, Father Zach,
Yes.
learns about the circumstances
Yes.
of the murder,
Yes.
and that's what brings it to trial. And
Yes.
and Father Zach is trying to support
Yes,
Migo.
but there's a question, and I don't want to
don't
give
give
away the
away the
solution,
plot.
but he's being challenged by the bishop for if he goes into court and brings any of this out, he's breaking the seal of confession. So that is all enters in here too.
Okay.
You know.
It does get entangled, doesn't it?
I think it's a page turner.
And yeah, and you do this in only 225 pages or so.
Yeah.
Yeah. How long did it take you to write the book?
I'd say a good 3 years with a lot of
Did it?
background preparations. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
How many drafts? Are you one of those gifted
So
writers?
many. Oh, no.
Yeah.
My friend Judy, she's a creative editor in California. I would send pieces, whole chapters to her back and forth for 2 years, back and forth. And she would say, no, that doesn't work. Or, we'd argue over it. So went on and on.
Okay.
Just finished, in fact.
You are now an experienced author. You've got 2 books. And we'll get to whether or not there's going to be a sequel. But some of the people I've interviewed, their approach to writing is they know the end of the book. They know the last chapter. They know where they're going. They have a destination. Others say, no, it reveals itself to me as I continue to write. I don't know where it's going to go. And that's part of the wonder, the magic of it. Do you fall into either one of those 2 categories?
Well, you have to develop a basic plot, outline the whole thing
Right.
with characters who come in and what they're going to do, and you're taking it somewhere. You've got to have that, or you're going to be all over the place. This is my first novel, by the way, but I took courses on it and everything. But you learn after a while that the characters sort of want to be alive.
Yeah. They speak
They
to
want
you?
to take you, not necessarily speak to me. They want to take it elsewhere, and you give some rein to that. So you start discovering, oh my God, it is a surprise. Will this happen or not? Do I let it happen or not? Will it help the plot further? You always want to keep driving the plot along. So the ending, I think the ending wasn't set until later, and then even I considered a couple endings. Sort of a mystery, a challenge, and it's got to be reined in, though. Otherwise, it would be all over the place.
Given the conversation we've had so far, perhaps I should know the answer to this question, but do you and some of your other priest friends, are you satisfied with the response of the church to the sexual abuse problem? Do you feel it was handled as well as it could have been under the circumstances? And what more do you feel the Pope should do about this problem? Because it's still with us, God knows.
You see it in the papers every day.
Yes.
It's still happening. A bishop in Chile just recently being challenged for having known something, covered up. The Pope is standing by him. I think, I'll just say, first of all, I think the United States bishops, especially in the last 15 years, have been really, for the most part, really good on this. They've paving the way and giving a model for the rest of the world. Actually, some of these countries are just beginning to face this. So our bishops have really done a good job. Some haven't. And, we want to highlight, and the book tries to open up those who have covered it up and what's going on there. So we're stumbling. What could the Pope do more? I mean, here's a thought I have. I spent a little time, only a month or 2 in South Africa, helping out one of our missionaries down there. And this, when they did away with apartheid, they had the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, which perpetrators of the violence were asked to come forward and confess what they did, and in return for that they would be given amnesty. I really think there's still moments, still time, even though I think we blew it earlier by not having that, to have bishops do that. Could we set up a system in the church right now where bishops who've been involved for whatever reason, 10, 20, 30 years ago in cover-ups, whatever we call it, could say where and how they got into that and what they did, and we wouldn't necessarily just, kick them out of the church, or maybe they wouldn't be bishops, but they'd be able to minister. In other words, is there a way still to reconcile in our church other than just have lawsuits and things tossed into the criminal realm where we left people flounder and we don't look like Christians that way?
But how do we regain trust in the church as an institution? It takes time, a change in behavior clearly,
yes,
but it also takes time.
We have to show people we do not have people practicing in ministry who are charged with these things and found guilty. We remove them from ministry and have special safety programs where they're overseen and supervised. We have to show them we care about the victims. We totally, truly care about them. We listen to them. We want take reforms into mind that they suggest. We show people we are trustworthy. We can be trusted. We have to earn that back. We open up discussions where we're willing to listen to people's ideas about these things, their feelings and their experiences with sexuality themselves. And we listen humbly, like the Pope says. We've got to earn the trust back.
What's being done? We were talking earlier to the extent that the church is really somewhat, it is analogous to a large corporation. So in a corporation, when you hire people, you screen them.
Yes.
You interview them, you screen them, you
Yes.
determine whether or not there's a good fit.
Yes.
What's being done, if anything, now in the seminaries as young men are coming into the culture of priesthood, to screen them, to put them through psychological tests, to determine whether or not, and as you know, you would know this better than I, there are some assessment tools that can help, at least whether or not there are some proclivities, some indications, some leanings.
They're all being screened, of
They
course.
are now?
Absolutely, sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's the first line of defense
Oh,
against
yeah.
this kind of thing.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, this problem is not going to go away.
Reporting, we're under Presidium organization where we go all through this training now to be aware of these things, which we weren't aware of 20, 30 years ago as we should have been. We have all these guidelines, how to notice somebody who's maybe grooming somebody, whether they're a priest or somebody working for the church, and how to report that and what to do. What are the rules? Oh, we have all these updates on it all the time. Yeah. It's a little much to begin with, actually. It's like,
I'm
oh
sure.
my God, it almost makes you afraid to touch anybody.
Yeah, regrettably,
You know,
that's
but we have to
part of the
learn not to
modification.
be paralyzed.
yes. Let's get to the cover again. I think the cover is absolutely brilliant. What's the story behind the cover
Well,
and the title?
the muffled priest really, I think, stands for how actually anybody in a system, but like the church, can feel like they can't speak with their own true voice, who you really are, what you really feel about things. And priests have a special challenge that way, and bishops, to represent all the teachings of the church. But you also have a pastoral response to people. You don't want to just lead with the rule, or you don't just want to say what the person wants to hear, but you want to be able to speak. And here's what, do you say sometimes what you think about something? You really are sometimes muffled from really speaking what your own heart says, certainly in public. So that muffling of priests, and in this case I want to represent the priest in the book who's a gay priest, who's really muffled in being who he is, honestly, in his relationships with people. He can't really say he's a gay priest. He's practicing his vows, but he still can't say that because the church teaches you should be ashamed about it. At least it always did before. And so my feeling was that this closetedness of gay priests created an atmosphere, a climate, a black wall of silence where you don't speak about things. And so when these abuse cases started emerging, it contributed to a silence about that. And unless we investigate these things, how we have this kind of unspoken silence in the church about things, especially around sexuality. We can't really say what we're feeling and doing, even in the parishes. People practicing birth control, they're really not allowed to say that, even though it's against the law of the church. This black wall of silence controls us, and more we could find ways to discuss these things, reverently, generously, not just doing away with the rules of the church. We will foster a climate of honesty and integrity in the church, which we need. So I wanted to show that figure representing any of us in systems where we want to say something out loud and we're prevented from it, we're going to pay a price for it, right? And the black wall of silence that it represents. And he's still in the church. That's the stained glass window. It took us months to figure out how to get those stained glass windows there. Are they too much or not? I said, I want them in there. This guy's still in the church.
It works. It's a great cover. It's a great cover.
Can I say one more thing about the novel? Do we have a minute? Somebody said, why did you write a novel? A novel allows people to look at it as a story. Almost like a parable that Jesus told. And you're not looking at an individual bishop. You're looking at a symbolic bishop or a priest or whomever in the story. And it allows people to enter into the story and read it and get in touch with their own feelings like you can't really sometimes with a memoir. You're focusing on
Yes.
that person.
Allegory.
That's why I wrote
Sure. The power of
the
allegory.
novel, the story.
What do you say to the people who have left the church as a result of the sexual abuse scandal?
I'm sorry. First of all, I say I'm very, very sorry. You may have left the church because you were abused or whatever reason. I'm very sorry. I'm also, I hope you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Throw Jesus out or Christ, even the church out because of some tragedies that happened in the church. I hope we can listen to you sometime and win you back. Your thoughts, hear you. We don't want to lose you. I don't. I need you in the church. Anybody, my family members, some of them have left the church. Can we talk?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. You have intertwined a number of very controversial issues in your novel.
Yeah.
And as I said, I can't wait to read it. Do you expect that the reaction to it will differ by generation? I mean, I've already declared myself as an old guy, a traditionalist, brought up in a certain way at a certain time. But as you work your way through boomers and Generation X and Y, millennials, particularly the millennials, the 80 million or so people who are still somewhere between their late 30s, mid-20s and early 30s. Do you expect that their reaction will be different from their parents and grandparents?
I honestly don't. I haven't thought
And
about.
did you take that into
I haven't
account?
thought of the generational thing. I've actually thought that people's response to the book may be more connected to their feeling of, almost like the book, instinctually needing to defend it, because
Yeah.
I think if you challenge it, you are not loving the church. And those who may feel like, who could go off on the extreme in challenging it and want to throw it out,
Yes.
reject it. So I've had some older people read the book and they're intrigued by it and they like it. I'm very interested in what some younger people would think about it.
Yes, I would think so.
Because we need to reach out to the people in their
Yes.
20s and 30s. Many of them have just left the church.
Is there a sequel? Do you already have in mind a sequel?
No.
No?
Although now and then I think, that'd be a good kickoff for a sequel, but I don't have the strength to do that right now. Yeah.
You're right. Suppose this, by some stroke of luck, as well as worth, ends up as a movie or the basis for a movie. Do you see that as a
Maybe you could
possibility?
be the bishop. You'd be good as the bishop. I wrote it and it was coming
You know
to me
what?
like it was a movie. Film scenes.
Talk to my kids. They'll tell you I am the bishop. Sometimes the Pope.
And I'm going to try and get a copy of this to the Pope. I honestly am, because it's dedicated to him.
Sure.
And the epilogue speaks of him
Yeah.
and the hope he gives to the church.
Yeah. Why don't you
So-
put his image behind the collar?
No, because he's speaking his heart. He's not muffled.
You know?
He's not.
All right. I can't. When will the book be available, and how can people?
I think it's
get a
coming out
copy?
by Easter.
By Easter. That's a couple of weeks away.
In the internet, Amazon.com. It can be an ebook,
Yes.
a soft
Do you know what it
copy,
will
hard
retail
copy.
for?
Probably
Approximately?
ebook about $5. Retail for the soft cover about $15.
And how are you planning to promote it?
Be invited
Venues
back to
like
your TV
this?
show. Have some book launchings. We're
Right.
having one at Chestnut Hill College on May 12th.
I'll tell
Book
you what.
expos in New York.
We'll tell you what. Maybe 6 months or so after the book is out, and you've had a chance to get some reaction to it. We'll have you back. I'd love to find out how you're
By
doing.
then you might have read the book too.
It's a pleasure to
Thank
have you.
you.
Thank you so
Rick.
much for being
Really
here.
appreciate being here.
I really enjoyed the op-ed piece. This was even better.
Thank you so much.
The book is The Black Wall of Silence. The author is Father Paul Morrissey. I hope you'll give it a read. Until next time, this is 30 Minutes. I am Rick Anthony. Take very good care of yourselves.